ho, ho! You're listening to the Important Cinema Club, and my name's Justin DeClue.
I thought that was Santa.
Yes, it's Justin Santa DeClue. Listen, I killed Santa with a shotgun, and now I am him.
You're like Tim Allen. Well,
yeah, I'm in Santa Claus.
I'm just plain old Will Sloan, I'm afraid.
Unless you kill me.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club, our special annual holiday episode.
Yes, and this one's a little blue, so...
That's right, folks. We always try to pick a Christmas-themed filmmaker, franchise, something. And also, it's a great time to do probably our most requested director ever.
Yes.
By popular demand.
People have been knocking down the doors, specifically
me.
Yeah, to bring him into a holiday context, and that director is Shaun Costello.
I kind of feel like when we did that Godfrey Ho episode, like the floodgates were open. It's like
we could do anybody?
Exactly. We could do anybody.
At that point we had done Radley Metzger, which I guess is the classiest if you're talking about hardcore pornography.
That's the thing. We've done hardcore pornography a few times on this podcast.
But they've been like the arty ones. You got your Roberta Findlays.
And Roberta Findlay, Radley Metzger, they had prolific mainstream careers as well. Gerard Damiano is the one porn director who was just a porn director.
Oh, whoa. Legacy of Satan does not have any pornography in it.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But Gerard Damiano was the Bergman of porn, the highest brow of the lowbrow genre.
And Radley Metzger was, what would you call him?
He was the Fellini of porn.
The Fellini of porn, yes. And Roberta Findlay was like, I don't know, she did kind of very psychologically damaging movies.
And she was as much a horror filmmaker as a pornographer. And this guy this week, Mr. Shaun Costello, is as porny as you can get. This is the most abject filmmaker we've ever tackled.
Well, I would argue that the movies we're going to discuss today do show talent and actual care for the product that he was putting on screen, as opposed to, for example, somebody making loops, which people wouldn't care. And Shaun Costello got started in loops.
That's right. Well, Shaun Costello it was a Vietnam vet and a guy who worked at an advertising company, I think. And in his off hours in the early 70s, he liked to haunt the balconies of the 42nd Street porn theaters. In the interviews that he's given, and he's given quite a few in recent years, he's described himself as a sex addict. So he was somebody who, when he talks about why he was such a good porn director, it's because he claims he loved porn.
He loved sex!
And his films are single-mindedly, well, not all single-mindedly, but many of them are single-mindedly devoted to the act. And many of them are quite vulgar and politically incorrect.
So people that are listening right now are like, wait, why are we doing this as a holiday episode? Well, that's because Shaun Costello probably directed I don't want to say the only, because I'm sure there's other ones out there, but I guess the biggest... Again, biggest is a very bold claim. He made a porn film that takes place during Christmas. Specifically, it's an adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
It's 1975's The Passions of Carol. So let's talk about The Passions of Carol first, since this is the Christmas episode. And then maybe we'll get into more about Costello himself and why he's notable and worth study.
So take the kids, put them to sleep. They're waiting for Santa to come. And you just listen to this alone, because it is not for anybody under 18.
One of the key facts about Shaun Costello was almost everything he made was financed by the mafia. Specifically, the I'm going to have trouble pronouncing it. The DeCavalcante crime family. They were from New Jersey. Fun fact, they were the inspiration for The Sopranos.
But wasn't The Passion of Carol funded by the owner of the Capri Theater?
Oh, perhaps that was the case.
Yeah, it was Teddy, I can't pronounce his last name,
right.
But he owned one of the porn cinemas. And at this point in his career, Shaun Costello was coming off of doing the One Day Wonders, and he had made 32 feature films, each that he had shot in one day for a company called Star Distribution.
And that was the Decava.
Those were the... Oh, Adam Sandler just showed up in the room for a second.
That was the New Jersey Sopranos crime family. And eventually they would form with the Gambino crime family and consolidate their film interests, but that's for later. So the Capri Theater, I guess, financed this movie, The Passions of Carol. And Shaun Costello's brilliant idea was, at the Christmas season, the degenerates in our audience, the perverts, the lonely men, they're lonely at Christmas. It's the loneliest time of year. So why don't we take the Capri Theater and decorate it like Radio City Music Hall and give the perverts somewhere to go?
Yeah, make it feel like they're welcome in the Capri Theater, and they can also celebrate the holiday as long as you pay $4 the entry fee.
That's right. Normally you would go into the Capri Theater, I would imagine, and strenuously avoid eye contact with anyone, but here are your family for just one night.
So at this point, Shaun Costello had made a number of porn films for the Capri Theater, and the deal was that he wanted to make them real ones, aka they spent $10,000 to $12,000. They shot for not one day, but 4, and instead of 61 minutes, they'd be 70 minutes. Like real feature films. He had done a bunch of silly comedies, and The Passion of Carol was his chance to do something he had never done before. Make a movie with a script.
So, yeah, this was the very first one. This was based on Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, so at least he was starting with, pretty solid source material.
And he said that in his previous films, he would just give his actors a scenario, and then he would just shoot it on camera that would then lead to the pornography. But here, he would get all these porn actors to actually, memorize dialogue and have to recite it. And a lot of it, he took directly from A Christmas Carol verbatim.
So the film stars Mary Stewart as Carol Scrooge.
Mary Stewart? I seem to have the name here, Mary Holiday,
Right.
which he took for this film.
And I'm assuming Mary Stewart's probably not the real name, probably.
Probably not.
But she stars as Carol Scrooge, the miserly editor of a skin magazine in New York. Jamie Gillis, the great Jamie Gillis, the Olivier of porn, he plays Bob Hatchett, who is her much put upon, I guess, writer or photographer for the
These
magazine.
beefcake photos aren't going to do. You go back home and you got to make sure they look direct. But it's Christmas. No, you got to do these. Go work on these dicks.
Now, Carol Scrooge is very busy during the holiday having a threesome in a mirrored in a mirrored room. And I gotta say, this is probably, I haven't seen every single Shaun Costello film before this, or even most of them before this.
Yes.
Certainly not
Film, strong word.
Certainly haven't seen them all the way through, folks.
Because you just fall exhausted.
After I've seen the first 5 minutes of them all.
All right. Will's wanking it. That's what we're trying to get at.
But this one actually looks kind of good.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
You can tell that he actually really wants to make a real movie, even in the scenes that start the picture where it's them just having conversations between each other. There's cross coverage, there's some nifty angles. One shot starts with a zoom in, zooms out. It's actually pleasing to the eye, and it only gets better as it goes along.
That early scene in the mirrored room is an example of the kind of, attempt at visual imagination.
Metzger-esque.
Yeah, it is Metzger-esque, actually. Or like Lady from Shanghai.
Yeah, that's right.
Later on, Carol Scrooge goes to bed and is visited by 3 ghosts, past, present, and future. The first played by the bisexual porn star Mark Stevens, who plays the Joseph Marley figure.
Yeah, so the prologue to all those ghosts.
Yeah.
Who, Shaun Costello said he had written a bunch of dialogue for him, and Mark was like, listen, I'm a porn performer. I cannot remember this dialogue, so just let me riff. And that's what he does.
So we see, a rather problematic, I suppose, scene of Carol as a child, played by adult actors,
yes.
of course. All of the scenes are done against these nifty kind of handcrafted, stylized sets.
So Shaun Costello said that because this was the first film that he wanted to make as a real movie, he greatly overestimated how much time it would take. He said, all I need is $14,000. It's only $2,000 more. I'm going to shoot it on 4 days. I'm going to rent a studio, which they had never really done before. Going to build sets, do costumes. He lived in a rent-controlled apartment with a bunch of other creatives that lived as his neighbors. And he said he got them all to participate, building costumes, building sets. And he realized, oh man, this is much more complicated than I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And supposedly it grew from 4 days to 14 days of shooting.
Wow.
And when you look at the movie, you can go, okay, I don't know, 14 days is a lot of time.
Yeah.
But there is a level of stylization to it that for a guy who would shoot stuff in 1 day that's 60 minutes long, he's trying.
Well, it's stylized in a very charmingly handcrafted way, almost like a Kuchar Brothers movie or something like that, where the scenes where Carol Scrooge is being led from past, present to future are set in these sort of black voids where there's a lot of, there's a smoke machine going and there are some lights in the background to make it look like outer space, and there are some artful green lights or one green lamppost like Detour.
Yeah. One way to create the kind of hallucinogenic feel is that he often has a character stand on dollies and glides through the scene.
Yeah, Spike Lee style.
Yeah, exactly. That's where Spike Lee got it, from the films of Shaun Costello.
And the acting is a mixed bag, I think it's fair to say. Carol Scrooge, Mary Stewart.
Not very good.
Not very good. Actually, another great looking scene is the Ghost of Christmas Future scene, where apparently Carol Scrooge's miserly ways will lead her to a ruinous future as a sex worker on 8th Avenue. I don't know how, but that's what we are led to believe. And we see her in her shitty little apartment servicing a John, and Costello shoots it with this kind of like blinking light.
And
cool
he actually says
costumes.
that the light as it like went from actor to actor in this like darkened room is he told the actors to only say the dialogue when the light would hit them, and then when it would go back to the next character until the light hits them, you don't say your dialogue. And that's like a level of stylization that these kind of movies need to actually make them watchable in some form. And that scene as well starts with like shots of 42nd Street, and they're actually in front of the Capri Theater as like she's pretending to be a prostitute. But this whole sequence is very miserable. And Shaun Costello has said that one of the reasons he thinks the film failed was because it wasn't sexy. Like this scene is supposed to show how miserable she is, but it's also supposed to be the climax of a porn film.
Yeah.
But it just feels like a chore to sit through.
Yeah, it isn't very sexy. This is one of the Shaun Costello movies that I would actually recommend that you could maybe watch for, like, it's fun to watch.
I thought you were going to say, with your family.
Well,
no.
Why not, though?
Yeah.
But you can actually watch it for reasons other than just the prurient interest. It's fun, and it has a lovingly handcrafted charm to it. Another reason why it flopped was because it wasn't actually released at Christmas.
No, it was supposed to come out on December 10th, which makes sense, would give enough time to, like, build up the buzz and, you know, get people there in the Christmas season, but it came out in March.
Because Costello missed his deadline, and he was so proud of the film that he actually made sure that it was booked in some mainstream theaters.
It played at the Quad Theater.
That's right, and it was reviewed in Variety, I think.
They gave it a pretty positive review.
As well they should have, but unfortunately, you know, a Christmas porn movie is a hard sell at any time of the year, but especially in March.
Hard sell.
Oh, well,
yeah.
There you go.
You know, we didn't even mention that Jamie Gillis, very good in this movie.
Yeah, well, he plays the soft, tender
Which
role.
he never does.
Right, and in Costello's commentary track on the excellent Distripix DVD edition.
Very good. If you're interested in this film, pick up the Distripix release.
Costello explains that he wanted, sort of as a novelty, to explore the tender side of Jamie Gillis. We'll get to the darker side of Jamie Gillis in a minute, but a little more about Shaun Costello's humble beginnings in the sex movie industry. After emerging from the balcony, like so many porn performers, Shaun Costello answered an ad at the back of, I think, the East Village Other for nude modeling, found himself in a basement somewhere where he started filming loops. Like all those guys, it was, hey, I got $30 to do this. Whoa!
He said that he told the loop guy, "Listen, I can just come in, and why don't we tell stories through just like photographs, and we can implement those in the loop, so you have my photos that gives things a bit of a narrative backbone." And from then, it just evolved into like, oh, why don't I just start making movies?
He was something of a movie buff by his own telling. His first movie, which was shot in 1971 and released in 1973, is one of the most notorious porn films of the era. It's called Forced Entry, and I'm sorry, folks, there's no pleasant way to talk about Forced Entry.
No, it's a film that hinges on sexual assault as the like prurient selling point.
Yeah, it's a kind of half horror, half porn film. It has some of the most upsetting sexual assault scenes ever filmed in any movie.
What do you think of Shaun Costello saying it was one of the first films to deal with the shell-shocked reality of Vietnam War veterans coming back?
Well, so that is kind of an interesting thing about it. Again, it was shot in 1971, and Harry Reams, a year before Deep Throat, plays this Travis Bickle-like character. And in fact, several years before Taxi Driver, he plays this Travis Bickle-like gas station attendant who, every time he sees certain women, it cuts to, you know, horrific atrocity footage of the Vietnam War, which I guess is the socially redeeming quality of the movie, because porn films at this time had to prove that they had socially redeeming value. So this movie Forced Entry opens with some very pretentious statements about the plight of the veterans returning from Vietnam. I mean, it probably was one of the first movies to deal directly with Vietnam.
Yeah.
Which is that's not me praising the movie or anything.
No.
It's just stating a fact.
And I mean, Shaun Costello himself, being a Vietnam War veteran, obviously put himself in this movie, and that's just a fact.
I'll tell you something about Forced Entry, which I actually did revisit this week because I'm on vacation and I have time to do things like that.
You lock the doors, you close the drapes, and you put Forced Entry on because you didn't want anybody knowing.
So it's an indefensible movie, but something that I find interesting about it, and in the same way that I find, say, the writing of the Marquis de Sade interesting, or Peter Sotos, or somebody like that, is it invites us to enter a world where everything that we consider to be evil is pleasurable. Mm-hmm. And in doing this, we're reminded that the morality that we use to structure our society is not actually objective. It's something that we choose to subscribe to. And in fact, many people like the protagonist of this film don't subscribe to it. And I think that's a very scary thought. It's a terrifying thought to think that morality is not objective. And it's interesting, for me at least, to sometimes sit and wallow in that thought for a little while.
You love it!
I'm interested in it.
Fascinated by it. I've seen your library, all those first editions of Marquis de Sade.
First editions?
Yeah, you're a millionaire. We're admitting it here on the podcast for the first time.
I'm not a millionaire, folks. Far from it.
But you understand why this would be the kind of angle that Shaun Costello, he wants to make something that will make an impact, that'll be delivering in a way that nothing else is.
Yeah, it's like, it's his first film and he wants attention, he wants to sell it.
I mean, like, roughies were a genre around this time, but it's like, how do you push that to the furthest extreme? Well, you have Fourth Century with funny man Harry Reams himself.
Giving a very committed performance. Also, Laura Cannon is in it, who sleaze fans may know as being the star of Fleshpot on 42nd Street.
The Andy Milligan film.
Where she has a much more tender sex scene with Harry Reams.
In an Andy Milligan film?
That's right.
Available now from Vinegar Syndrome.
Great film.
And so we were talking about, kind of catering to a very specific audience, which brings us to Shaun Costello's most famous film, pretty much.
Probably. It has semi-legendary status.
I mean, Passion of Carol is not a famous porn film. Like, I don't think it has its massive fans. Shaun Costello likes it, and it got, like...
I like it.
And it got respect on DVD.
It doesn't have a huge cult.
But it doesn't have a cult like Water Power does.
Yeah.
What is Water Power, Will?
Well... the story behind Water Power is kind of funny.
Hilarious, you mean?
So he was working for this company, Star Distributors, from the De Cavalcante crime family. And then he was working with this guy in the crime family named Sid Levine. Mm-hmm. And one day Sid Levine comes to him and says, "Look, I'm a grandfather. I'm ashamed to have to ask you this, but they need an enema movie."
So at this time, there was someone called the Enema Bandit that was sexually assaulting people and giving them enemas on a college campus, I believe, right?
I don't know a lot about it.
No,
but
me neither.
It's something along those lines.
Yeah, and I think that it was making, like, newspaper headlines. So Star Distributors decided, listen, if everybody's this interested, we should make a movie based on the subject. Mm-hmm. So they got Shaun Costello up into their offices, and they're like, listen, make an enema movie. We don't want to see it. We don't want to read the script. We essentially want nothing to do with it other than the fact that we're giving you the money to make it, and we will be distributing it. Mm-hmm.
And that's what Costello did. Mm. And this one, in fact, came out after Taxi Driver. And so, Scorsese and Schrader paid beautiful tribute to Forced Entry with their masterpiece, and now Costello gets to return the favor.
Yes. And, when you hear this premise, you think it's like Forced Entry. It's not. It's, like, very over-the-top and wacky. Yeah, it has scenes of sexual assault.
And those scenes are very unpleasant. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the other scenes are very tongue-in-cheek. So Jamie Gillis stars as Bert, a Times Square dweller, a lonely guy, a guy whose apartment looks very much like Philip Seymour Hoffman's in Happiness. And he one day goes to a brothel where he has desultory sex with Sharon Mitchell. Things just aren't doing it for him anymore, but he hears, wait, there's some sort of procedure happening in the other room.
Well, there's a very comedic sequence where he talks to a receptionist and she gives him a long list of things that are available that are just go on and on about every fetish. And then it's not enema, it's like a different term for it. I don't remember what it is.
Yeah,
but he's like, wait, what's that? And then she's like, oh, come with me, where there is a mock kind of operation going on as a doctor performs it on an not unsuspecting in this case, but just like a woman who's pretending that it's unsuspecting.
The woman, by the way, played by Long Jean Silver.
Oh, the one-legged porn star.
And this was her first film. We do not see, she has, I guess, a stump and her large sock on in this, so we don't see that she's one-legged. But this was her debut film.
I can't believe I knew that off the top of my head. Look what you've made me, Will.
So Jamie Gillis, as Bert, sees this extraordinary enema procedure, and he...
instantly aroused.
And
it's probably a help that the nurse is giving him fellatio as this is going on.
And folks, this is problematic stuff. This is, consider this your content warning.
Now, 20 minutes in.
Bert believes that it is his job to purify the women of America, I guess, by giving them enemas. And so one of the things he does is look through his window through a telescope. He sees women who he thinks are beautiful innocents, and he sees them having consensual sex.
And he's like, I can't believe you're doing that. Disgusting. Very Rear Window-ish.
Right. So he goes over and purify them. He does in some very unpleasant scenes of sexual assault. I don't know how you feel about this. I think that a movie like...
Bad. That's how I feel.
Yeah, bad. I feel a movie like this... look, it's porn.
Yes.
And
it's catering to a particular group of people who this is their particular turn on. And they exist out there. And
I tend to be a bit libertarian about things like this. I think that as long as it's fantasy...
Yes. That it's not... being done on screen, it's not snuff in any way, then there's no problem with that. If everybody is consenting who is on screen that is doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, we should, I don't want to get too deep into it, but like a lot of the, like pornography in the 70s was often known as like a very degenerate thing, right? That the people were being forced into it.
Well,
and
Linda
that it was
Lovelace
Linda
is the
Lovelace,
famous example.
Yeah. But like Shaun Costello would talk about that, like he would cast his friends in these movies, that people that he knew to participate in these kind of, pornographic scenarios.
I was listening to his audio commentary on the Vinegar Syndrome release of Afternoon Delights, and there's a quote. He was talking about a particular performer in the movie that he didn't like that much. And he said, and I'm quoting, "She was very self-centered, very self-involved. I prided myself in providing very happy sets for actors. I hired actors who I thought would like each other, work well together sexually, enjoy each other's company. I know it may sound strange. I really did think about that. That's why I never had erection problems on my sets, because I really thought through who's going to have sex with who and how this is going to work. I think I was one of the few people who really did that."
And he even said that he had issues with, like, creating long-term relationships with the people on set that he was supposed to work in a professional situation.
Right. Well, and you see in his movies, he uses just the same actors over and over and over.
Jamie Gillis, Harry Reams,
C.J. Lang, a couple of others,
and, Water Power, compared to Passion of Carol, it's barely a movie. It just kind of spins its wheels until the credit roll at the end. And the version that's available now, there's a funny story of how it came to be, because I believe his original cut was something like 60-something minutes.
Right. Well, according to a long story that he wrote on his blog, which he currently maintains, the movie was released at 70 minutes, did no business, and then in the interim, the Dick Calva, the Soprano family, merged their film assets with the Colombo family, and they decided, we're going to re-release this, and we're going to credit Gerard Damiano as the director.
Yeah, maybe if Gerard Damiano's on it, who is famous for Deep Throat, more people will come and see this Enema movie.
And did Gerard Damiano have a choice in the matter?
Nope, not at all.
No.
And what they did was, because I think it was 60 minutes, is they had to pad it out to hit that 70-minute mark, so it would be feature length. And the way that they did that is they just put outtakes in the movie.
Right.
That Shaun Costello had no intention for anybody seeing.
I mean, this exists in many different versions, censored in various ways. The cut that I saw was something like probably 81 minutes, and it combines a pristine-looking 35mm print with a shoddy video.
I think it's like a French DVD source and like a Greek subtitled VHS somewhere.
And I gotta say, the Greek subtitled VHS is a little bit better, because something like this really ought to look like you found it in a dumpster. I had actually never seen Water Power until
really?
this week, because as
why would you watch it?
Well,
out of like morbid curiosity.
I mean, so the idea of a Shaun Costello movie that's a riff on Taxi Driver with a lot of footage of Jamie Gillis on 42nd Street,
like getting his photo taken, just walking around.
I mean, that is right up my alley. But then when you add enemas to it, I'm like, no, thank you. But then,
seeing them in graphic detail on screen, probably for the first time in my life, I'm like, it's not that bad.
There was one that made me gag.
Okay. Maybe my faith was turned away at that point.
Hey.
So Shaun Costello as a filmmaker, what is his value in your eyes when you talk about him like overall? Why should his name come up?
When we're talking about the one-day wonders that he made, which I think comprise the bulk of his filmography, at least half of his filmography, I mean, they're movies that were made without scripts, and they had this rotating cast of New York porn regulars. And, generally speaking, the New York porn regulars looked a little more real than the LA, San Francisco equivalents. And they were shot, in the dirty streets and shitty apartments of 1970s New York. And in addition to that, very few of the movies have been that well preserved. Yeah. So they have this, rotting
dinginess to them,
quality to them. And I would say Costello's focus on the nuts and bolts of sexual intercourse, combined with the sort of haphazard, artless style of the production, as well as, maybe the conditions that he created on the set, make the movies abject or real or raw in a way that I find interesting.
Well, I think another...
And even arousing sometimes.
And I think that one of the other reasons to talk about this stuff, and we've talked about this previously in other hardcore episodes, is that I think it's important to contextualize this kind of stuff, to know where it came from, because for a lot of people, it's just like a mysterious kind of blank. It's like, oh, there's 70 pornography. It was all trash. Who cares who made it? It doesn't really matter. Yeah. But when you talk about these specific figures, and you can kind of give it a history, I think it actually gains more value, whether the movies are good or not.
Well, these one-day wonders are sort of interesting because there were a couple of tiers of pornography in the 70s. Again, as you said, most people think of it as this one big thing, but you had loops, and you had one-day wonders, and then there were features, and then there were, like, Radley Metzger features. Yeah. And those were the tiers.
Wait, Radley Metzger? Don't you mean...
Henry Paris.
Henry Paris? Yeah.
Yeah. And this isn't really a thought that I'm taking anywhere, but I'm just going to throw it out there. I think it's difficult. I'm interested in the challenge of creating a sort of critical language for pornography, because I mean, to talk about pornography is to talk about, like, is it arousing to you? Does it fulfill its necessary function? It's particularly with Shaun Costello's movies, which a lot of them, that's actually all what they're all about.
That's all it is, yeah.
So what sort of aesthetic criteria do you bring into this? I'm getting so pretentious here.
But I think that's why we're talking about Forced Entry and Water Power and Passions of Carol, right?
Because there's actual filmic stuff.
There's actually filmic stuff to talk about, yeah.
I think that's one reason why I wrote down that quote that I read earlier, because... it's a way to talk about what sort of art goes into sex on screen, What are the conditions that a director brings to make a set conducive to sex?
I agree with you. And I'm glad the people who listen to this episode, thank you for listening to this.
Well, I'm a hero. What can I say?
Right. Taking the bullets and giving people this Christmas gift.
I also just wanted to, work through my Shaun Costello.
Yeah, give you a reason to watch Water Power.
But before we get off Shaun Costello, we'll just give a little context to the end of his career. He did end up graduating into higher budget pornography. He worked with a producer named Ruben Sturman, who had a company called Leisure Time Booking. They called themselves they were called the Walt Disney of porn. And he started making 2 films a year. There was one that I watched this week called Beauty.
Yes.
Which was sort of a Beauty and the Beast riff.
You told me to watch the first 10 minutes, and I did. Very slick. Yeah. Radley Metzger-esque, I would even say.
Yeah, it's quite nice. I wouldn't necessarily recommend watching the whole thing.
No, but those first 10 minutes, when he's actually trying to create a mood and feel, I would even say that it's one level above what he was doing in Passion of Carol. Yeah. And you got that nice stolen Citizen Kane music over it.
Almost all of his movies have music stolen from
other movies.
Yeah. Particularly Tubular Bells.
Yes. He loves Tubular Bells. Yeah. It's all over Passion of Carol, too.
I mean, it's amazing that companies will put these things out. Because,
well, they assume that it's going to go out, it's going to play in theaters a bunch, and then just disappear.
Costello's porn career ended in the early to mid-'80s. He has resurfaced occasionally. He made a short film that's on YouTube called Writing for Time.
A documentary.
About Time Magazine.
Yes.
Made with the full participation of Time Magazine.
He made a documentary about the Gulf War.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really been keeping busy that much, because I think that his name is too associated with pornography, even though, like, a lot of porn directors, he took pseudonyms. Like Passion of Carol is directed by Amanda Barton.
Yeah, well, most of his movies have pseudonyms. There was Warren Evans, Ross Carlson.
Yeah.
He did resurface online about 10 years ago, maybe, because he started to realize that there was a small contingent of Shaun Costello fans out there, and he's put out an ebook about Harry Ream. He's an active presence out there now.
There's been the promise of an autobiography that he's written that I'm just like so excited to read.
Shaun Costello, if you're listening to this, and I would not be surprised if you are, please send
it to us.
Send me your autobiography.
Just reading his blog post, or even like the booklet that comes with the Distrib Picks Passion of Carol, just excites me to read like a whole career
He's
length.
a good raconteur.
Yeah, he's a very good raconteur. So,
Merry Christmas.
hardcore holidays. So, as per usual, you can send us letters at importantcinemaclubpodcast@gmail.com. And this week on our Patreon, what are we talking about, Will?
The movie that I keep being told is the best Christmas movie ever made. And did you know it's a Christmas movie?
Wait, no, Passions of Carol?
We should make that the new
Christmas movie that we recommend. Is it a Christmas movie? Is it not? Who knows?
I was talking about Die Hard.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about Die Hard on a Patreon. I mean, we're both Bruce Willis fans, in specifically Die Hard.
I
and
like
his Bruno face.
I like Bruce Willis. I like having him around.
And you like old Bruce Willis, right? You never miss a movie.
I have seen a number of his late period movies.
His, I like to call them the sitting in a chair in one room movies.
I've not seen much of his DTV output, but when he has a movie in theaters,
yes.
I am.
Wait, didn't
often
he have
tempted.
one recently?
He had Glass, and he had Death Wish.
Yeah, he also starred in Edward Norton's film Motherless Brooklyn.
Oh, yeah.
So he showed up for that one.
Yeah.
All right, so we're talking about Die Hard. Check it out, $5 a month, patreon.com/The Important Cinema Club. Give yourself a gift that will bring joy into your life. So we're taking a week off.
Yeah, it's Christmas.
It's Christmas. And we're not even going to say what we're going to come back with. I don't know how the dates line up, but it's either going to be the best of the year or maybe not.
Yeah,
I don't know. We'll see. So until then, my name is Justin McClue.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening. Just a special announcement. Anyone who is a $10 subscriber to the Patreon, by the time January 1st comes along, in your next newsletter mail out, you will receive an Important Cinema Club membership card. We've been doing this for a few years now. There's club in the name. I don't know why we haven't done membership cards yet, but finally, for the $10 subscribers, we're mailing it out. If you would like one, there's still time. Become a $10 newsletter Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/The Important Cinema Club. But remember, you have to do it by January 1st to be eligible. After that, who knows when we'll give membership cards out again. And so I'd like to give a heartfelt holiday thank you to Jean Rabin, Hunter Sawyer, Jacob Durasco, A Kind of Garbage, Jim Campbell, and James Deegan. Thank you so much for becoming Patreon subscribers. It means the world to us. And as per usual, we would really appreciate it if you went on Apple Podcast or Stitcher or whatever podcast app that you use and you give us a rating and a review. It makes all the difference and allows other people to discover the show. So thank you very much, and we now return you to your regular scheduled programming. Will, what are you excited for this holiday season during the break where you don't have to go to work? You can just check out and go to the movies, and this is when all the big releases, the big Oscar contenders come out, right?
Oh God, what do I want to see?
Crickets.
I guess I'll check out A Hidden Life.
Is that coming out?
That's coming out.
That feels like there's almost no buzz behind it. Like, when it was playing film festivals, people were like, ooh, the new Terrence Malick. And now it's like, eh.
It doesn't seem to be in the Oscar conversation.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And I'm very surprised about that.
Yeah.
Feel good. I skipped it at TIFF. Because I was like,
skip it
seems like
again?
homework. Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Wasn't there a movie recently that I saw that I was shocked? Oh, I don't remember. Some Oscar film, I'm sure, that I had skipped.
I'm hoping to make some time for the 20th Century, which is the one that
Oh, you haven't seen it yet?
the Canadian film.
Great.
I know that's not the answer you were looking for.
No, I'm not.
Because you're wondering, like, what big movies am I excited for?
Yeah, because you're a big fan of middlebrow stuff. You're always complaining that the stuff isn't handed to you anymore. And, Christmas season is usually when all those Oscar films comes out.
Yeah.
And it's like stuff that like big awards contender because they get it at the end of the year because Oscar voters have very little short memories. So they want it as close to the end as possible.
That seems to have changed a lot because the Oscars keep moving up.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be 2 weeks earlier this year.
Oh, are they? I didn't even know that.
That's right. And of course they used to be in March. It used to be like, I remember, was it $1 Million Baby that opened at the very end of December? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, like nobody had talked about it. And then all of a sudden it became the Oscar frontrunner.
Did that win Best Picture?
It did win Best Picture.
Wow, I don't even remember that.
There you go.
I remember at the DVD store, there's like a giant edition of like $1 Million Baby with like a little book and stuff like that. I'm like, who is that for?
That's an heirloom.
Yeah, because you're supposed to give it to your grandparent who you don't know what else they like. You're
Right.
like...
It's a Benjamin Button style heirloom. You pass it to the person older, and then they pass it to someone
That's the
older.
classic, like, you go to someone's house and there's like an unopened thing, like, on their shelf. It's like a copy of $1 Million Baby, which comes like a commemorative shot glass or something like that.
This is off topic, but I remember when Schindler's List came out on DVD.
Yes, and so many unopened copies on everybody's shelf.
But when it came out on DVD in the early 2000s, it came in this giant set that came with a certificate of authenticity.
No!
And it's like, listen, I trust you. I believe this is a real Schindler's List
I
DVD.
remember looking at a relative shelf and seeing like the VHS of Schindler's List unopened. Because it's like, I guess this is something I should own.
Yeah, who's rewatching that?
I don't know.
Once every 2 decades, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. When was the last time I saw Schindler's List? Probably when someone
Probably
forced
when
me
I
to
was
watch it in school.
Probably when I was in high school is when
Yeah.
I saw it.
And
Nothing against it. Good movie.
no, but really, getting back to the topic, is that I was shocked looking at the films coming out this December season that there was no big, like, contender. It's like, this is when you would think the Mr. Rogers film would come out.
Yeah.
Nope. Came out months ago.
That feels like a movie people would want to see at Christmas, right?
Yes.
Get the family together. But you know what the problem is?
Rise of Skywalker?
Yes, because the Star Wars movies now come out in December, and
Well, not anymore after this
well,
one.
yeah, maybe, but they've been coming out, and every studio like gets as far away as they can, except for one movie that is the designated counter program. Cats this year. In
You
previous
excited for
years-
Cats? I mean, it hits all your favorite buttons. Pretty much all CGI, directed by your favorite director, based on a musical. You cannot stop humming every time I see you.
I'm almost rooting for Cats just because like
Ugh.
it's been so much made fun of, but there's
People
just,
love making fun of it, though.
but you know, there is just the immovable fact that it looks awful.
The thing
and
about-
Tom Hooper is a fucking hack.
The thing about Cats is, like, I cannot hum you one song from it.
Yeah.
And I love musicals.
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah.
And Cats is one that, again, as a kid, I feel like I went to relatives' houses and they had posters of cats on the wall.
I was always under the impression that Cats was kind of a joke.
Yeah, but everybody saw it.
I know it was-
People loved it.
I know
it won
it
the
was-
Tony Award for Best Musical the year it came out.
I know it was a huge hit, but I always thought everybody was just kind of on the same page. That, like, oh yeah, that one's kind of tacky.
It's so bad, so good. It's
like,
so good.
Like even like Phantom of the Opera, you know, a lot of people like, but Cats, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I don't know about Cats.
I'm excited to see fucking James Corden's face CGI'd onto the Danny DeVito penguin.
Are you going to see it in theaters?
No, I don't think. You know what? There are still so many things to do that aren't seeing Cats.
Yeah, but I mean, there's not that many movies. Rise of Skywalker, which you will see out of, you know, part of the...
To be part of the conversation.
No. It's because you're legally obliged to, because the court's decided for your threats that you had to go see Rise
it was
of
part of my parole for killing Baby Yoda. Right?
Yeah, volunteer hours and stuff like that. And other than that, and I guess a Terrence Malick, but that's it. It's just Rise of Skywalker as far as the eye can see.
Well, I guess I'll go see that then.
Yeah, that's it. Maybe once, maybe twice.
Yeah.
Go with friends and you're like, listen, I don't want to go see Cats. Unless, you know, if people are saying it's like such a massive boondoggle that it's like almost hilariously bad, I think that my curiosity will get the better of me. I mean...
Are you actually thinking of not seeing it?
No, I don't think I was going to. I had no plans on seeing it. Right. Yeah, I'm sorry, because I'm a Tom Hooper completist.
Oh, sorry. I thought we were still talking about Skywalker.
No. Skywalker I will definitely see. You know, I wasn't going to see Solo until my friends were like, come on, we're seeing it opening night. And I saw it, and I was like, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be. I'm good.
Yeah.
Have not seen or thought of it since. Rise of Skywalker, I'm a JJ fan. I like how he moves his camera. Is he a storyteller? A good storyteller? No, he is not.
Well, it sounds like you better keep your expectations in check for this one.
And we've talked about on Patreon episodes that I love The Last Jedi.
I like The Last Jedi. I think
And
it's fun.
the fact that people...
Last Jedi is honestly the only one since, 1983.
Yes.
And even that one I don't like that much.
Yeah,
So
fucking Ewoks.
Yeah.
Die is what Will Sloan says. You were on the message boards, the BBSs at the time, writing that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it just makes me wonder: is that like, are the big pushes for award films? Is it over? Because now it's like kind of gone to the wind. I mean, Little Women is coming out. I'm very excited about that.
yeah,
as well.
but even that one seems to be
under the radar.
Yeah, because I don't think it got a lot of Golden Globe nominations, and
yeah, they're the real.
Well,
yeah,
sadly they are.
Cats did not even get nominated for Best Musical or Comedy.
Well, that might be because apparently Tom Hooper just finished making it
But
2 days ago.
he showed it to them.
Okay, he showed, I guess, a rough cut?
Yeah,
how is that
something.
allowed? That's fucking bullshit.
I don't know. But yeah, like Little Women is, like you said, doesn't feel like a contender in that sense.
Yeah.
Lady Bird was nominated for Best Director. I think it was nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
I think things are just changing. The Oscars are happening, early enough now.
Mm-hmm.
The movies, the critic awards are happening early enough. The momentum is on the side of movies that come out earlier. Fuck, I feel like fucking Lights, Camera, Jackson talking about the Oscars. It's disgraceful.
But the thing is, you love the Oscars more, not love, but have like a passionate addiction to more than anybody that I know.
Yeah, that's really sobering, isn't it, to think of that? I mean, it's probably true.
Well, let me look over the last few years and what kind of tweets you made around this time. Oh, wait, somebody has Oscar fever, and it's Will Sloan. Look, the evidence is right there.